everyone. It looks like everyone has successfully joined for our first session. So now I'd like to kick off the exciting lineup that we have for track 2, starting with a panel discussion about enterprise service management adoption in the UK and the US. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Clive Burford from King's College London to kick off our panel presentation about enterprise service management adoption. Clive.
Hello, Deb. Thank you very much for that. Welcome, everybody in the UK and across North America. As Deb says, this session is going to be talking about enterprise service management. I'm going to give just a very brief introduction, then hand over to some of my peers in other universities who are going to tell you a little bit about their experiences of implementing service management in their institution. We've got Henrik from Queen Mary University in London, Mark from Glasgow University, David and Hemmer from Georgia Tech. Before we start, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting myself, Mark and Henrik, to speak with you today. We're all part of what is known as the RUGIT Service Management Group. Now, RUGIT is an acronym for the Russell Universities Group of universities, primarily research-intensive universities based across the UK. And similar to EDUCAUSE, RUGIT meets on a regular basis to promote the value and benefits of IT in the university workplace. So just thought I'd say thank you for inviting us. We've been working with EDUCAUSE about the last 18 months on various avenues of collaboration, and it's great to be here. So, enterprise service management. What is enterprise service management? I guess everyone on this call today has got a pretty good understanding of what service management is. That's what attracted you to this session in the first place. And IT service management in its traditional form, as you know, is all about ensuring that IT stays aligned to the business goals. There are various frameworks out there to help us do that. Enterprise service management has been around for a while to a greater or lesser extent, whereby areas of the business not IT have seen some of the value that IT service management has brought and have wanted to adopt some of those practices themselves. And it's really getting a bit of momentum now. And enterprise service management as a term is becoming very, very key to a lot of organizations. So that all the different strands within the university, not just IT, all align their activities to what, at the end of the day, are the business goals that will benefit all of us if we're successful. The universities have all got unique challenges, as you all know. Something Karen mentioned on her keynote was all the different areas have got different personas, and we know that all too well. So bringing them all together to adopt enterprise service management principles is a challenge. And as I said, my colleagues now would like to talk about some of their experiences doing just that in their institutions. So first and foremost, I'd like to hand over to Henrik, who is from Queen Mary University of London. Over to you, Henrik. You're still on mute, I think. You're stuck on mute.
Hold on, Henrik, 1 second. I'm trying to get you unmuted here.
We knew this was going far too smoothly.
Let's see. Henrik, you're a co-host, so you should be able to unmute yourself. Uh-oh. Just unmute. Let's see. Henrik, I'm wondering if it might make more sense for you to call in, because for some reason we can't get you unmuted. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. This might be more. Okay, Henrik, now try it. I might have fixed it.
Right.
There
does
we
that
go.
sound better?
Excellent.
Yes,
Excellent.
no duplicate of you.
Perfect. I kept clicking on the button and it kept telling me I'm a participant. I can't unmute myself. So I tried. Anyway, my name is Henrik Broger. I'm the head of IT service delivery at Queen Mary University of London. So as it says, we're based in London, in the East End. We're one of the most diverse universities in the United Kingdom. The majority of our students and quite a lot of our staff as well are from either international communities or one of the diverse communities in the UK. And we get a huge amount of our intake in from areas of the UK which are lesser able usually as they are to go to university. So we pride ourselves in that. What I want to do when we talk about enterprise service management is look at three particular areas which I see as key to maybe not necessarily adoption, but certainly areas that you want to think about when you want to start think about service management, bringing it out to the wider organization. The first one is about the application of best practice methodologies. I'll come back into that in the next slide, but suffice to say that ITIL is quite a big thing in the UK, and a lot of us will be aligned to that. The next one is functions. So you've got the service desk, which is an obvious function of IT, and then there's the wider thought of the single point of contact, which I think we've all done very well in IT, but perhaps not as well in the wider organization. There is also something I think is quite important, which is looking at device procurement. So we've got a challenge there where you have academics with funding, and where do they go and spend that funding? And then added to that, how does that then link to your infrastructure, basically? And that takes me on to the third element that I want to cover, which is about the technologies. And that key thing is the service management tool. You've got self-service components, usually part of the service management tool, but they don't have to be. And then the application of key service technologies. And we're particularly talking about things like live chat, remote support. So things that assist you in delivering a wider service. So if you put on, yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Clive. So let's start with best practice methodologies. So I mentioned ITIL, which is the de facto best practice process that you would use predominantly, probably in the UK. I don't know what it's like with you guys. ITIL version 4 is out, and there's lots of talk about what we want to do with it. We're currently still aligning ourselves to what's called version 3, and that's primarily because our ITSM tool is configured to it. So you can see how these things link together. Some people might say, well, methodology, it's an IT thing. You don't need to think about that when you start pushing things out. I would probably say, yes, you do, if your IT organization is steeped in it. So if I go and ask the question to anyone in IT, they'll know off our heart what an incident and a request is, and they'll understand what a change request is. So we don't even need to mention these things. But when we go beyond into HR or estates and facilities, those other areas, they don't understand that inherent knowledge, that implicit understanding of how you apply service management that we bring with us. And I think we've just got to, we don't necessarily have to impose it on anyone, but we have to understand that implicit difference between their understanding of delivering service and our understanding of it in terms of methodology. In fact, there may indeed be methodologies out there that other areas of the business are using that we ought to look at as well, even if it's just to try and align what we do to what they do. So as I mentioned, we've adopted ITIL through the use of a shared tool set. And we have actually enabled the ITSM thinking, even if in a very boiled down version, with our e-learning support teams, but also our estates and facilities team. It doesn't mean that they follow everything, but at least they will follow things like incident management, so where things are broken, and request fulfillment, where you're asking for something over and above. So yes, in short, it helps to understand the methodology that we use and how you can adapt your thinking, if not your processes, when you start to roll out enterprise service management. I think that's ready for the next slide. Functions. So we mentioned the service desk before, and using that as a single point of contact, which I think is one of the key areas of service management and enterprise service management. We've got the IT service desk, which is part of my team, and they oversee the tickets that come in for library services for one of our overseas divisions, but also because we share ITSM toolset, we're also assisting our estates and facilities guys in delivering this particular function. It could be brought out broader, I would say, but we're on a journey, and I think that's it's important to look at it that way. We also do device procurement through our business support area. That is linked into our technology, and that means that you get to pick from a standardized IT service catalog. And I would say we've done very well with enabling the whole business to come to us for picking desktops, laptops, and any type of technology, and making it available in IT service catalog. We also agree the supplier contracts, and this helps us promote the idea of buying through us, because we get better deals when we do it as one rather than lots of different pockets of purchasing departments. So yes, thanks, Clive. You can go on to the next one. Service management tools. So we use a very aged, or can you call it vintage, version of a tool called Vanti. That has helped us, as I mentioned, stretch the service element to library services, e-learning, and estates and facilities. It is a clunky tool, and I think this is where I'll probably say the tool really determines how far you can go with this. There are self-service components in there, which we're all using. And then there are the extra service management technologies, which is where we've enabled service to be delivered in a better and more encompassing way. One of the things we've done well with is live chat, especially since we've been locked down 3 times now. That's really helped us deliver service in a much better way. And other teams have seen how we've used technology in that way and come to us, used us as a reference point to deliver the same service throughout. So even if we're not using the same tool, we're at least thinking in the same way, and we're thinking towards a goal of potentially applying AI over the top of it, so we can do this in unison rather than as individuals again. And I think that's onto the last slide. So yeah, takeouts from this. Best practice methodologies, they are a complex sell, and I think the question ought to be asked, do you need to apply it? And if you do, can you potentially adapt some of your elements to the other areas? Like, as I say, we've boiled it down to request fulfillment and incident management for a couple of areas, and that works perfectly well. Having that common understanding of what we talk about has really helped. Functions, the service desk as a senior point of contact, it does need senior buy-in, because otherwise you're not going to be able to stretch it. You will have competing teams, and somebody needs to agree to put everything in one pot. And with the team that does it best, which arguably I would say IT does, and you will obviously benefit from a shared tool set there. A centralized IT procurement, it does carry a logical financial argument, and it has been much easier for us to sell this across an organization and say, if you're buying a laptop, you come to us. Technologies, as I mentioned before, archaic service management tools like our Ivanti version doesn't help. You really want a service management tool that is open and enables the idea of thinking beyond IT. A user-friendly self-service portal really does help as well. It's a great area for take-up. It's a great resource saver. So if you can bring things into a self-service portal, you're certainly onto a winner there. And then lastly, but not leastly, is to spearhead technology adoption. It is probably where we can really win over people from other areas, because we have the understanding, we have the IT graduates working for us. We could even collaborate with our computing services schools, as I've done some of, to bring technology in and help us enable a better service management delivery across the enterprise. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Henrik. And now, without further ado, time is of the essence. We're going to move north to Scotland and hand over to Mark Temple from the University of Glasgow.
And I can unmute myself, so great stuff. Thank you, Clive. Thanks, Henrik. Mark Temple, University of Glasgow. I'm conscious that we've not got a lot of time. Ideally, this would be a half-hour presentation, but I'm going to try and condense it into the 10 minutes that I've got, so I better shut up and get on with it. It's a story of what the journey that the university's been through. We started out with a procurement process when we were looking to change our service management platform. And I'd been steering it for a number of years towards it not just being for IT. And I'll go into a bit more in the next slides about that. But this was an opportunity to take, what would have just been an exercise for IT, but to broaden it out and to get the benefit across the organisation. So that's what I'm going to focus on here. Clive, could you kick me onto the next one? Thank you. Okay, so I don't know about your university, but I've worked for the University of Glasgow for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of change over the period. But I see a lot of practices that go on for years as well. Someone has a view of a way of doing something, and new staff inherit that and they pass it on to other staff. And quite often that is what makes us different. Why is our department different to other departments? Why do, we won't adopt that process. We want to do it differently. And to me, for enterprise service management, what you need is for people to focus on what's common to them all, not to be creating their own version of something, not to be reinventing their own wheel. And that's what we've worked towards across the past few years. So just a sample of some of the teams that we have now using a common platform. And in slight contrast to Henrik, we're using a brand new cloud version of Ivanti, so it's the same the same tool set, but using a cloud version, we're always on the latest release, so that certainly helps us take this forward. So looking at the touch points, what does enterprise service management bring to this? You've got touch points across all of your teams. We've got them using the same platform. In some areas, they need to be absolutely watertight from a data security point of view. And you you need a platform that can do that for you. Talking about language, and I'll come on to that in the next slide, you need a system that is adaptable to this as well. I think Henrik mentioned about not inflicting something on departments, so we can't inflict incidents, changes and problems on HR because they don't speak that language, but we can help them to help themselves by adopting methodologies and processes that we're very comfortable with, and I'll go into that in the next slide. But just a couple of the other, to look at some of these areas, you do have connectivity between a number of these areas, and this is where you can learn from each other. You basically bridge the gap between these areas, rather than sending an email from finance to HR. If you're bought into enterprise service management and you do have the luxury of using the same platform, you can be moving the work about, whether that's automated or whether there's some manual handling, but you've got the common understanding of using that platform and using the methodologies there. Clive, can we kick on to the next slide, please? Okay, again, what have we got in common? What is common to all of these things? I mean, I started with our head of campus security many moons ago, and I said, you guys must need to have a note of who is the customer in something. Now, for you might not call them the customer. You may call them, you can have the person has lost something. You're going to have the person who's had something stolen. You're going to have the person who's reporting something has been damaged because of a crime or just a general incident. But you need to manage that through its life cycle. So we've got the who, we've got the what, and we need to know who's the owner, who is working on this. Is anyone working on it? So there's a commonality there. There's no difference between someone reporting a window's been smashed or there's a hole has appeared in the middle of the road to someone reporting that a printer's jammed or that their PC hasn't booted. It's got a life cycle, and that's something that we are working in IT. We've been working with that for years. We know the lingo. We know that it's second nature to us, but that's not the case in other areas. And that's what the enterprise service management side of things brings to people. So it's been able to, again, in the tool set, use the language that the customer expects there, and even the term customer. I mean, if our data protection office talk about a subject, our complaints department talk about a complainant, IT will talk about a customer, HR may talk about an employee. So your tool set has to be able to reflect that change depending on the audience, that you're not imposing a language for IT on the other areas. Clive, could we go on to the next slide, please? Okay, so getting on to the benefits of this. As Henrik mentioned, a single portal. You have one place. Staff and students don't need to know how your university is structured to be able to consume the services that you provide or to report issues with a service that they're using. They don't need to know where on your website estates live or where on your website HR live. They go to a common portal. They have knowledge at their fingertips, and they have the common catalogue there. Using the same system does help your support staff help each other. We've, within the university, gone on to this source of institutional knowledge. We used to do a lot of signposting. A student went to student services and asked a question. They said, well, sorry, that's not us, it's the library who answered that. You need to go and see the library. They went to the library asking about, their fees. They said, well, sorry, we don't know anything about fees. You'll need to go and see the people a mile up the road. using a common platform and a common knowledge base allows you to answer questions, or at least help students to help themselves without having to say, sorry, it's not us, it's them, you know, go and see the people up the hill. Obviously, again, so that's our shift left again. We're getting that from the knowledge base. Thank you, Clive. You're a mind reader. Other things, shared reporting, definitely, you know, it brings to the party. You've got different sides of the organisation sharing with each other, saying, you know, we've got this great dashboard which tells us all of these things. All right, well, we've never used dashboards before. Well, here, you know, so this, you know, this does work across the organisation, that you're helping each other. As I said, less signposting, and definitely driving automation. Return on investment, you've got one platform, you're licensing one platform, you're developing against one platform, you must get return on investment on that. And I'm conscious of time. On to the last slide, please, Maestro. So what would stop this working for you? Well, as in anything, culture plays a huge part in it. You know, I work for the University of Glasgow. We've been around since 1451. You know, we have picked up some baggage along those 500 plus years, and you've always got to get over that. So it's bringing people along on that journey with you. The platform, you could do this with multiple platforms, but my strong feeling is that it works best if you're all on one platform. Other things that are going to work against you, you know, if you won't adopt a new way of working, and you want to stay using shared mailboxes rather than, you know, getting into the world of service management, then, you know, it's going to hold you back. And again, you may have other systems already to do these things, and you can't get them married up. And I'm going to shut up now and let David have his time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, conscious of time, I'm just going to hand straight over now to Georgia Tech and David and Hema. Over to you guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for that information. So, David Mack, we are with the the Georgia Institute of Technology. Go ahead and flip the slide. You can actually do 2 slides if you want. All right, so just a little bit about us. We're a public research university. We are a member of the University System of Georgia, which is actually a big part of how we've had to implement our service model. We had about 40,000 in enrollment last fall, and we support roughly 8,000 faculty and staff, just to kind of give you the idea of what we're working with. And we're located right in the heart of Atlanta. So go ahead to the next one. All right, so where I sit and where Hema sit, we are in a group called the Enterprise Resource Planning Group. So we are part of an IT structure, but we're a separate one that really focuses on the enterprise level systems that we've implemented. So one of those systems that we've done for our finance department is Workday Financials. And then another big piece of that, which is our HR system, is Oracle PeopleSoft. And what separates that Oracle is that we are not actually the ones that implemented it. That is part of that larger university system. So the University System of Georgia is the one that actually owns and implements that. We just are tied into that. Another system that we're using for our ITSM model is ServiceNow. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, next one. All right, so for instance of time, you can read through this. Basically, this is just speaking to how we have set up our model. The goals really speak to what our overall objectives are. I think it kind of speaks to what the other presenters were saying, is providing that quality end-to-end across the board service. historically at Georgia Tech, we've had use of a lot of different ticketing systems and a lot of email inboxes and a lot of, hey, I know Joe in accounting, so I'm going to give him a call because I know that that's how things can get done, right? So we have implemented ServiceNow as our method, and we've gotten rid of most of those email boxes. And just to kind of speak to what Mark did, it was a huge culture change trying to change that. A part of that model too, and what we've done to make it easier, is really investing in our tier 0 support. So using ServiceNow, we've put a significant amount of time into developing knowledge articles that will support whatever the caller or customer is trying to figure out. If that is IT related, or if it's finance related, or if it's HR related, we all want that to be generally in the same place. So if you go to the next slide, Clive. All right, so this is our 40,000 foot view of how we operate here at Georgia Tech. We have a tiered system. Again, like I said, we put a lot into that tier 0, and we continue to build on that, because ideally we want help to be done there, right? We want a person to be able to know exactly where to go to get the answer to the question that they need. But that also includes trainings. It also includes known issues. If we know that something's outstanding, that's affecting a lot of people, we want to push that out there. And then another part of that is our self-service catalog request. If these aren't able to answer it, we have a second level, which is our tier 1. And these represent different desks. From a setup point of view, we know that they're different. We have different people handling different kind of incidents and transferring before, but we really try to make it look like one, right? So we try to make it a central place, depending on, regardless of what information you're trying to get. And then, of course, if tier 1 can't answer it, we have our network of tier 2 agents. And we're continuously adding different functions and different capabilities in tech. We came on heavily with the finance and HCM, and we've partnered very closely with our IT. So it's really the same system, and it's the same entry point. It just goes to that. So regardless of how it comes in, if it's a integration issue, if it is an accounting issue, or if it's an HR issue, right, we should be able to use our system and transfer it over to the appropriate party. If you go to the next slide. So I wanted to show you kind of our methodology on this, and what the customer, and it's what we call someone in our campus that's looking for help, comes to see. So this is our central landing page. So these tiles represent the services that we have, and again, we continue to grow them. So we started out with about 4, and we continue to make it bigger, really, each year. So this central help question, how can we help you, is like a Google search. So if you have a general question, you can type it in here, and it will pull from all of the different knowledge bases that we have. We go to the next slide. So when you click in one of the tiles, for example, this is our financial tile. We have some specific information that is tied to this particular function. So for financials here, we have different categories if you want to learn more. And then we have our direct links for our helps. You can go to the next slide, Clive. Okay, so here's another example. If we dug it down a little bit deeper, and this is going to be the same for all of our areas, but this is where we have things like our training guides are listed out, and our job aids, our knowledge articles, and then any sort of self-service requests that you can do on this particular function, which is expenses and travel expenses. And the next slide. All right, so requests, we mentioned that briefly. So self-service requests are an attempt to really streamline processes, and we've had a lot of success with these. These are things, think of like I need security to a particular system, or maybe I need a some sort of work tag created, or I need something that's repeatable. And what we do is set up these really defined forms that make the user fill out exactly what is needed to complete that task. And then that goes through an approval process if it's necessary, and that's all done with inside the system. And then any kind of the actual implementation of that task is all done and tracked within the system. The beauty of that too is it sends back messages, and it allows the initiator to go and see where the status is, depending on to where it is. All right, next slide. All right, so this is the, if we weren't able to solve it in our tier 0, this is where you would go next. So this is going to be consistent across the board, and we have one central number and one central endpoint for requesting help. So you can always pick up the phone and call. And we utilize a phone tree method to get you to the right person or to that right desk. Again, trying to keep it as uniform as possible. We also have the ability for the user to submit a request help here. And here's an example of one we have. So fill out the information, and it works very similar to the phone call, where that will get routed to the appropriate person that needs to work on it. Okay, next slide. All right, so going back to where we first talked about. So when we're looking at our PeopleSoft implementation, I had said that we don't, at Georgia Tech, technically own the system, right? So that is a university system. So all the universities in the system for the state of Georgia are using the same. With that comes some challenges, right? So they're operating in their own service model. So we have our instance of ServiceNow, and they have their instance of ServiceNow. So we're using two separate portals. And with that creates that two separate teams. With that comes two separate processes and different terminologies. And then another big challenge is that knowledge, that tier 0 that we've worked to create. As Georgia Tech's specific knowledge articles belong to us, and then anything that would be broader for the larger university system would be managed by that university system. All right, go ahead to the next one. So this is how we've combated this, and this is the approach that we've taken. So this is our HCM tile, and hopefully to you it would look very similar to what we just looked at for the larger. We did this on purpose. So this is our landing page, and we want it to look just the same to create that experience. Go ahead, go to the next slide, Clive. All right, so this is where it differs. So if someone was to click on a knowledge article and it was ours, it would open just like it would for anywhere else. However, if it belongs to the University System of Georgia, we seamlessly just push them over to the other side. So it looks a little bit different, but we try to make that as seamless as possible. And then the next one, we'll look at the incidents. So incidents work in the same vein as the knowledge articles. So you can create that number, and like I said, you call the same number and you'll submit the same incident request. However, if it is one USG or that related to the HR model, it automatically sends that message to the shared service center, which is in a completely different city. So they'll handle it. It does create some connectivity issues, but for the most part, we try to keep it as seamless as possible. All right, next slide. All right, so just kind of overall looking at this and the way that we've done it. So a lot of benefits to the way that we've done it. As some of y'all have already said before, this creates that single point of service, which is really key, right? We want to drive as many people to one place because it's confusing to say, well, I go here for this and I go here for that and I here go for that. It creates frustration. So this helps to do that. It makes that consistency and uniform experience. it allows us to retire a lot of that email support, which is just so hard to manage doing that. And it allows us to collect better metrics. On the other side of that, some of the challenges that we have seen implementing this model is that culture change, right? I think Mark spoke to that a little bit. It's hard to change that culture that people have been doing this for decades, and it's just the way that things are done. So asking them to do a different method is hard, and it takes some effort. As part of that too is a learning curve. A lot of people had to learn a new system and a new way of doing these things. So that's another one. Some of the challenges that we've had with that one USG is just inconsistency. Ours are of a certain level versus theirs, and we don't have any insight or any sway into how those look or how those are written. And then, of course, those handoffs. The handoffs can be a little difficult. It's a lot easier. We in our group, we kind of oversee all of the different areas that are operating in the system to make sure that they're working with them. It makes it a little bit harder when that system is outside of our organization. And then some of the metrics are a little bit different on both sides. So that was our high level view. I'll turn it back over to Clive, I think, for any kind of questions.
Hi, Dave. Thank you very much for that. Hema, do you want to take over? Hema, you're going to wrap the session up, as I recall.
So there were 3 questions, and most of it we have answered in the chat. So the first one was whether Mark manages the process for all departments, or they just route the ticket to, and he answered for some he is managing, whereas for others they are just sending it to that particular assignment group. And also there was question on presentation slide deck. I have posted the link for that. It is also available in the event page for you all to check it out. And finally, there was a question on ServiceNow employee self-service, or is GT using that, and have we integrated ticketing between GT and USG? Yes, we do use employee self-service portal and also we have integrated the 2 ServiceNow portals between our university system and Georgia Tech for the HCM service model. So that kind of covers all the questions.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
I would hand it over back to Deb. So.
Yeah, yes, Hema, thank you.